Okay, this is part 3 of our 1945 game, but we need to step backwards a little bit because there's a part I left out at the end of part 2. And that was we didn't take our controller object that we created to generate enemy planes. We didn't put that in the room. So let's go to our room 0, and on the list of objects, we'll make sure we select object controller enemy, and we'll place it in the room. It's an invisible object, so it won't really show anything. But that should create more enemies than we had the last time we looked at this game. Okay, now we've got at least 3 jets coming out, sometimes 4. So that's good. Okay, back into it. All right, what we're going to add in this edition of the game is we're going to add a system to keep track of scores, lives, and health, actually, so that the plane can withstand more than one collision. Each collision will take away about 1/3 of its health, and eventually that will destroy the plane. But we'll have a health bar that's animated and linked to how much the health variable shows. And also, we'll have a nice information panel at the bottom of the screen that will display how many lives the player has left, and also that health bar we talked about. Let's start off by importing a sprite. We'll go create sprite. We'll call this one SPR_bottom load sprite. And we'll find that one here. And that's the controller or the information panel at the bottom. Click open. And then everything else I think should be fine, so we'll click OK. Next, we're going to add a new controller object, so create object, and we'll call this one obj_controller_life. No sprite, just like the last time we did a controller object. However, on this one, we're going to set the depth to -10,000. And the reason we do that is because this object is going to draw some things on the screen. We want to make sure that those things that are drawn are well above everything else in the game, including the player. This is an information panel, and it should separate ourselves from the playing elements like the enemy planes or the player's plane or islands or whatever. So this has to float above everything. All right, let's add some events. First of all, we're going to add a draw event. And in the draw event, we want to, let's go down to the draw tab here. We want to draw a sprite. And the sprite that we're going to draw is the controller panel that we just talked about. So sprite bottom. And we're going to draw it at a position of 0 for X, 404 for Y. And for the sub image, we're going to leave it at -1. All that means is we're going to use the current image. So we don't need to mess with that. Click OK. Next, we're going to talk about the create event. And as soon as this object is created, as soon as the room starts, we're going to do a few things. First of all, we're going to set the score to 0. That'll make sure that the game starts with a score of 0 and doesn't have any leftover score values from a previous game. Next, we're going to set the lives to 3. And then we're going to set the health to a value of 100. This is a percentage value, but you can only type in values from 0 to 100. Okay, and now back to the draw event. Okay, in the draw event, we're going to change the color of the drawing . Okay, let's go back to the draw event and then go down to the draw tab. And we want to change the color that we draw with to yellow. And that looks good. Click OK. OK. Next, we're going to draw the value of the score. So we're going to go to the score event, score tab, sorry. And up here it says draw score. I'll drag that out. Draw score as a value. The caption we're going to leave out because there's a caption on our graphic image, our sprite, that is the panel at the bottom. That has a caption on it already. We're going to set X to 180 and Y to 440. Now these are arbitrary numbers. They're based on the size of the sprite of the panel that we're going to have at the bottom. And we didn't design that panel, so I'm just taking the numbers that are in the tutorial. If you draw your own score panel, obviously you're going to set these numbers up relative to how big your square is or how big your panel is. And so those numbers, you might need to trial and error it a little bit to figure out where exactly you want to draw your score. But in this case, these are the numbers we want to use. Click OK. Let's click OK on this and jump out of here for a second. We need to add one more sprite. And the sprite we're going to add is the little plane, what's called icon here. And so click OK. Oh, I'm sorry. That's not true. We're going to use life. Click open. And then for the name, we're going to put SPR_life. And then click OK. Now let's go back into our controller life object and go back down to the draw event. And we're going to draw lives as an image. So grab this item right here. And the image we're going to use is sprite life. We're going to set these positions as 16 for X. And then for Y, it's going to be 410. And then click OK. Next, we're going to draw the health bar. And so grab this item right here and drag it out. Notice it's the one with the light background, not the one with the dark gray. And what we have here are two coordinate points that are going to describe our rectangle for our bar. X1 and Y1, I believe, are the top left corner of the rectangle. So that would be like if this bar here were our rectangle. X1 and Y1 would be the coordinate point for this corner. And then X2 and Y2 would be the bottom right corner. So it's just going to draw a box, a rectangle with those 2 points there. For X1 and Y1, we're going to use 12 and 449. For X2 and Y2, we'll use 138 and 459. For the back color, we'll use none, and for the bar color, we'll use green to red. In your own games, you could change the color of the bar as it gets rid of health and shows the damage that's being done. But those are our numbers. Again, these seem like just random numbers, but this fits the panel that was designed. And we didn't design the panel, so we just got to take the numbers that the tutorial gives us. But if you designed your own panel, you would come up with your own numbers here. Okay, next we need to open up the enemy1 object. So go down here to enemy1. And inside this object, we need to adjust some settings in the collision with the plane. Normally, what happens when we collide with the plane is we destroy the plane and play an explosion sound, or we change the plane into an explosion, which then ends the game and things like that. But now we're adding health. So what we need to have happen at this point is the plane needs to collide with an enemy and then have its health go down. And we don't want to end the game until the plane has lost all its health. So here's what we're going to do. Let's delete all of the actions that are in here. What happens when the enemy plane collides with the player's plane? Well, first of all, let's play a sound. And we'll play the sound of explosion 1, and we will not loop it. Click OK. Also, we're going to create an instance of explosion 1 and 0, 0 relative to the enemy plane. Next, we're going to jump the plane, the enemy plane, to a new position above the screen. So it's going to look like that plane's gone and a new plane is coming onto the game. So for X, we're going to say random room width. And for Y, we're going to say -16. Click OK. And then finally, we're going to go to score, and we're going to set the health, and this refers to the player's health, to -30 relative. So we're going to lose 30 points of health out of 100. Okay, and that's all we're going to do for that. Let's click OK. Now what happens when we run out of health? We have to control that and provide a way for the computer to handle no more health, otherwise the player would just keep going for infinity. Let's go to the controller life object. We're going to add an event here from the other category, and the event is no more health. Look at that, it's already made for us. If there is no more health, then here's what steps we are going to take. First of all, we're going to reset the health to 100. Click OK. Don't check relative, otherwise you'll end up with a score with a health of like, he potentially could end up with a health of 130 or something more than 100. So set it to a solid value, an absolute value of 100. Next, we're going to play a sound, and we're going to play the Explosion 2 sound. Loop is false. Then we're going to change the instance of object. So you have three options here. You have self, other, and object. If you choose object, you're allowed to grab all the other objects in the game. And this can be dangerous because if you choose something like bullet, it's going to change all the bullets into something else. But object myPlane, since there's only one object, there's only one myPlane object, there's only one instance of it, then it'll only affect that one. So change into Explosion 2 and perform events, yes. Okay, that's the same thing we were doing earlier in our last version when the enemy plane collided with the player's plane. We changed the player's plane into Explosion 2 and then ran all the events for that object, which ended the game essentially. So if there's no more health, we're going to do the same thing. It's going to basically take us through all the steps to end the game. To review that real quickly, let's jump over there and look at the Explosion 2 object. So the player's plane becomes an Explosion 2, and once the animation ends, we're going to destroy the explosion, sleep for a second, show the high score, and restart the game. Okay, back into object controller life. What do we do if there's no more lives? Add event, other, no more lives. Okay, in this case, we want to do the standard things that we normally do. We want to show the high score table, and then we want to restart the game. And click OK. All right, we need to go into our room and remember to place an instance of the controller life object. And now this game should be able to have a health bar and all that kind of stuff. So let's test it out. Save your work would be a good idea, and then play it. Okay, there is our score showing up in the right place. Now if I collide with an enemy plane, oh, my health went down. Health went down again. Health went down again. So I can withstand up to 3 hits and still fly. But then, game over. Okay, so good. Everything seems to be working. In the next edition of the game, we'll add more enemies and different types of enemies. Ultimately, we're going to have enemies flying in from behind us and enemies that can shoot bullets at us. And so it'll get a lot more difficult in the next phase.